This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless.
Good morning and welcome to the Leadership in Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by another Alex, Alex Hearn this time, who's CEO of Slipcase. Alex, how are you?
I'm very well, Alex. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be on the podcast.
Yeah, and look, I always say this, and I'm always like, I've wanted to do this for a long time, but genuinely, this has been some time in the planning. I think this has been about 18 months of flirting and trying to get you come on. But I know you've been really, really busy. So I'm genuinely really pleased to have you on. So thank you for joining me. Alex, as is traditional on the podcast, let's start with the simple thing. What is Slipcase? What's the Slipcase business?
So Slipcase is a central information portal for the global insurance and reinsurance market. And there's sort of two elements to it. There's a user perspective and a organizational perspective. So from a user side, if you are an underwriter, a broker, a risk manager, anyone with an interest in the global commercial specialty part of the market, you can come to us and get hold of information that's been curated from across the web based on your preferences to keep you up to date with what's going on, give you what we like to call a sort of contextual intelligence around what you specialize in. The other perspective is we work with organizations, now over 100 organizations across the market, to very, very clearly represent who they are, what they specialize in, where their expertise lies. And every time they produce content, we enable them to distribute it to relevant audiences across the market and then understand the traction they're getting off the back of that through regular sort of custom reporting that we provide to those clients.
But that's not that. Was that always the goal? Because I think we said this when I first met. So obviously, I work in the search world. I know we have a family connection to that. I'm pretty sure when I first tried to join, I wasn't allowed to, but I certainly am now. And I don't know if that's you just softened with age, Alex, or is it an evolution of the original idea? Like, what's been the journey to what you offer now versus what you started with?
The idea was originally a social tool for the market. I was a broker in London and just wanted to build a system that brought together all the things out there that were relevant to what I did every day. And at the time, social media was exploding, and I just had this view that there needed to be a system just for this industry. And that was the first iteration. It was a sort of off-the-shelf platform, $50 a month or something from an American company. Put a picture of Lloyd's on the front of it, made it look and feel like insurance, and it grew, but nowhere near at the rate that it needed to sustain itself as a business. So realized quite quickly that people if they were coming to the system, they were using it to consume information. There wasn't that much demand to give back. And more, if they were giving back, they were doing it on other platforms like LinkedIn, which was beginning to really flourish in the market. So we did, after a couple of years, we sort of just made enough money to keep alive, realized that we needed to pivot. And we then shifted towards information, removing a lot of the social elements and just pulling together good quality insight content from across the web that might be relevant to these individuals in the insurance and reinsurance world. And we've grown very, very nicely since.
It's interesting because I think at the time I remember seeing it and thinking, well, first, that's the reason I wanted to join. I was like, well, that's pretty smart. And there was this kind of prediction that there was going to be lots of these like micro social communities grow up, and I know one of the predictions was about having different social platforms for things like this, like exactly like that. There was actually one in the recruitment world for a while as well, which is an awful place to be. I mean, what a terror. I mean, LinkedIn's bad enough with the amount of recruitment spam on there, me included. I mean, I more than once have had someone say in a way that I'm not sure is complimentary or not, going, Alex, every time I go on LinkedIn, you're everywhere. And the tone sometimes suggests that it's not what they want to see. But there was that time, because when did you start Slipcase? How long ago was it now?
It was 10 years ago now, which is mad to say out loud. Yeah. So did those first years, and you're completely right. There were quite a few more sort of niche communities cropping up, and I think a lot of them didn't work. People as the bigger social networks just carried on growing at the rate that they were, people were just using those more and more, and there wasn't really actually that much demand for these other more niche setups. I think what we observed 7-8 years ago when we pivoted, and actually what we're continuing to observe year on year since, is this like progressive significance in the insurance and reinsurance market on having a deeper knowledge of what you specialize in day to day. So yes, there's always going to be need for those social tools, and all of our users are also on LinkedIn and they use it regularly. But having a tool to get hold of information that's published throughout the day, every day, that is either news, insights on things that you focus on, but also deeper bits of thought leadership, white papers, blogs, podcasts, videos, whatever it might be, all fitting around what you specialize in. We've just seen the demand for that increase really nicely year on year. And I think fundamentally that comes down to there's an increase in pressure on individuals in the market. People need to have a deeper knowledge of what they're doing every day. And actually it's very difficult to get that information if you spend a lot of time online trying to find stuff that's relevant for you. And we are just making it very, very easy for individuals across the market to be better informed of what's going on. And even on those social tools, the LinkedIn or whatever else it might be, it's very, very difficult to shift through the noise to get hold of all those really nice little nuggets that actually impact your day job. So I think that we've progressed. It's been a journey. It's been a very challenging thing to introduce this new technology to the market. But it's very exciting watching this shift year on year in the appetites of the industry on this user side. And I think we're very, very well positioned now to make sure that it continues to be serviced in the best possible way going forward. And I'll talk about it in a minute, but we're about to launch some very exciting new things to make sure that we can deliver on that in the sort of next chapter of our growth.
I think it says really positive things about the market as well. I think one of the negative connotations, and this is probably from the work that we do in InsurTech Search, is that we have lots of clients coming to the UK from the US, and they'll say, right, we want our first hire, and they will categorically say, I don't want anyone too Lloydsy or to London market. And what they really mean is this sort of like non-student, relationship-driven, learn as you go kind of attitude of the market. And, that's one opinion. And I'm not sitting here saying that's good or bad. And I'm certainly not going to say rude things about the market, because I think there's a huge amount of knowledge there, and that knowledge sharing is important. But I do think there's a maturing, conscientious student. And it probably says something about the complexion of the market is very different in that, you're getting top rate grads and education coming into the sector, and then they're bringing that kind of attitude and that continuous improvement, continuous learning into the market. So I think that says very positive things about the industry, which haven't been said. So yeah, it's important that there's a platform, because as someone that uses LinkedIn, using LinkedIn as an example, they keep changing the algorithm. And so even now, the way that I get people to respond more to my content is I have to respond to more content. Well, that's fine if that's really my day job, is to sit on LinkedIn and obviously find candidates and clients and interact with them. So therefore my interaction is naturally high. But if you're busy being a retro broker in the London market, you haven't got time to sit. You haven't got the 5 hours a day or whatever I spend on LinkedIn just to interact with content, whether it's relevant to you or not. So it's very challenging. So I think you do provide a really valuable service. I wanted to ask you, what's the common misconception about what you offer? Because I don't think it's always been understood. And I think maybe that is part of that journey to where you are now. But is there still sort of a remaining misconception that maybe drives you up, keeps you awake at night?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the biggest one is us being sort of pigeonholed as a pure sort of trade media publication, and that's something that I think people originally thought of us as in the early stages from a user side, but also on the client side as well. So there's been quite a process there to sort of educate users, educate prospects and current clients on where we sit and what we offer. I think the most exciting thing that we've noticed about that on the client side is, I mentioned this sort of shift in interest from users across the market to get hold of good information, this sort of tipping point. We've also seen it quite a lot on the client side, this change in sophistication, marketing directors across the industry having a lot more pressure on them to show return on the money that they're spending outwards in the market. So, when they're producing content, they're putting it out on LinkedIn, they're putting it out on their own newsletter channels, they're now putting it out through Slipcase, and we're able to then provide very, very clear insights on how they performed, how their content has performed on the system, but also among the audiences that they're really trying to reach over a period of time, what does good look like? How could you be producing content to be hitting those audiences more effectively? And I think, I've sort of like twisted your question there to my benefit, but I think the biggest misconception initially was we're just a tool to put content on and make our company look nice. And I think what we're slowly over time educating clients and prospects about more and more is actually we are a tool, a tech tool to, yes, showcase your brand and distribute your content to a great and growing audience across the market, but then also to get this deep insight into performance, which gives you that ROI and makes it very, very clear to justify spend. And also, if we're producing content, how do we make sure we're producing it in the right way for the audiences that we're really trying to reach? And that, we've seen is something that is becoming much more of interest to our prospects and current clients over time, as well as they're investing more and more in producing their own proprietary content.
It is interesting to me, just generally the industry and the industry's approach to content and the industry's approach to just advertising and content in general. And I know they're not the same, but they can be bucketed together for the point I'm trying to make. In that, I see some strange things. Like I thought it was odd when like Howden rebranded, and then I just everywhere I went on the London Underground, I saw these massive like advertising, and I'm like, well, no one's buying the services of Howden in the Underground, are they? Like I didn't understand it, and then I was like, is it just a branding exercise? And it could have been, and that might be it. It's like it may be about people wanting to join the Howden business, and I thought the same with some of the Hiscox advertising, but they're slightly different because it's kind of the more small business end of it. So there is kind of this like brand versus kind of like deliverables, but what we're really talking about is the demand for data. Because even just talking about this podcast, the first thing that gets asked when I speak to marketing teams now is to get a bit more granular on where our audience is and what's the makeup of that audience. And we're quite lucky that we have quite a good handle on that, but it is quite difficult. So that demand for data seemingly is endlessly increasing. And on the kind of product development cycle, how much of that was driven by your interactions with clients and asking that of you, or kind of you doing the CEO thing of being a bit of the visionary and kind of looking around the corner and going, I think this is where we need to go? Because it's a clear shift in what you offer.
Yeah, Alex, it definitely is, and I think it was a bit of both. I think the market was changing as we were growing as a platform, and we were big on keeping very close relationships with our client base. We meet with them regularly. We have regular calls throughout the year, and we listen a lot. We've done quite a lot of research within our client base as well. And I think, without question, this is generalizing hugely, but I would say when we first set up, the view was much more around that sort of scattergun approach that you just mentioned. Doing a campaign in a tube station, or just pushing as much stuff out there to as many people as possible over a period of time, which is still done for various reasons, branding reasons, as you mentioned, across the market. But the big shift has really been around content as a focus. If we're going to produce content and spend a lot of money producing this information, it's not, the scattergun approach is categorically not right. We need to make sure that if it's a bit of content that's relevant to intellectual property audiences across the global insurance and reinsurance market, we don't want to hound people that focus on North American property with that content. We want to make sure it gets in front of the right people. So you might only get 30 or 40 clicks on a very niche item of content, but it's from the right audiences around the world, and the value that is now put on the relevance of those eyeballs is far, far in excess of what it was even 5 years ago, when that number would just have been looked upon as being a small number and not big enough. So I think definitely like this interest in, yes, at times when you want to do a big branding push, just get it out there and do the tube stop thing and spend a lot of money broadcasting in any way you can. But as a sort of always on functionality, something that ticks along throughout the year to service the content you're producing, and to have something that delivers to those niche audiences and then also helps you understand what those niche audiences actually really want, is something that we're really focused on. Our ambition from a user perspective is we want the quality of content produced by the market to increase and increase and increase over time. We want our users to be getting better information over time from the providers, the trade media outlets, but also the carriers and brokers across the market. And our vision is, our content and our data for organizations can really help with that and help clients iterate on the content they're producing for that wider market over time.
What are some of the trends you've seen in terms of the types of content people are producing? Because I think it's a really interesting point, actually. We've got 3 podcasts that we run internally. this is the biggest one. So it has bigger numbers. And sometimes when the team join and they're involved in one of the other podcasts, they go, well, we want to be involved. And it's not about how many people listen. It's like who's listening. Like, yeah, if you've got, selfishly from our perspective, if we've got 3 of the most active recruiting insurtech businesses globally listening, and the CEO goes, well, they sound like a decent outfit, I should probably reach out to them. That's better for my business than a load of people listening that have no interest in that whatsoever. So that micro content, and I definitely think we've seen the shift in kind of conversations that we have prior to doing podcasts, like I say, about the kind of texture of the audience, but that type of content. What's been the evolution there? Because everyone was going after video, then everyone wanted to produce podcasts. White papers have been around forever. Is there some themes there that you can kind of comment on that people are kind of seem to be moving towards in terms of content styles?
Yeah, I think, it really fluctuates over time. I think you're right. Most companies now are much more interested in investing in those more niche sectors of what they specialize in. And I think ultimately that comes down to, a lot of these organizations are vast carriers and brokers that have all these silos within the business, all these areas of expertise, and they need to. It's a very competitive market, obviously, and with more and more people shifting online, like, yes, you can differentiate at events that you're hosting throughout the year. And of course, the industry is a hugely relationship-driven industry. And that is a core part of why business is done with whatever company it might be done with. But, it's no secret that the decisions that are being made are more and more frequently being made online and through digital platforms. And which is why systems like ours are becoming more and more significant. But yeah, I think within those verticals, companies over time do really fluctuate in the formats of content they're producing. It's funny, like how some large organizations will be quite specific on a different format per specialty line. Their view is within aerospace, our market really wants deep dive insights every quarter on the aerospace market and rates, what's going on there. And others we see much more focus on smaller short form items, small responses to cyber attacks, for example, from cyber saying, this has just happened. It's obviously significant. We don't know the full consequences yet, but our view is X at this stage. Those are hugely popular through our system. Podcasts, obviously, massive increase in interest in those over the last probably 4 or 5 years, but that fluctuates hugely. And the output fluctuates hugely as well. Videos over time have gone up and down, of actually having another surge at the moment. And then we also categorize every item by product or interest area, so we can see what products in the market are of particular interest over time. At the moment, we're seeing massive interest in social inflation based articles for the industry. The nuclear verdicts in the US casualty market really spiking. C-suite interest in insurtech and technology in the insurance and reinsurance world has come back up after having a real dip off last year. Which is really interesting. So, and those, that fluctuates all the time. That's something our data pro Dip Chowdhury is in a better position to answer in more detail, and maybe our commercial lead as well, Raf. If anyone wants to know more, they can get in touch with him. There's a lot of really deep insights, and again, those can be presented in a way for organizations that fits with their strategy. Companies can say to us, we are really focused in the next quarter on cyber, intellectual property, and North American property. We're not really fussed about X, Y, and Z, and our key geographies are US, Europe, whatever it might be. And we build our reporting based on the strategy of that business, and we evolve it as their strategy evolves. It fluctuates a huge amount, but it is interesting to see how demand and output as well changes in terms of formats.
In a sort of related note, I was watching there's a thing on marketing actually, and they were saying how things have trends, and they have trends in the sense of going towards things that work, but just preference, So when Kindles first came out, there was a huge drop in the amount of people that were buying books, and then now everyone has a Kindle. Everyone's going back towards, people want the touch and feel of a book, so books are becoming more popular again. And I find that with content, it's like podcasts are everywhere, and then I think everyone got a bit podcasted out, and then also kind of what success looks like is like ultimate numbers versus kind of actual effective numbers. So that kind of makes a lot of sense for me. There was a conversation I had with Tom Spear, who's Chief Commercial Officer at Superseed, and Tom was saying how the buying is done online, and we talked about different sales strategies, sales styles now, and essentially saying how the skills have shifted, because when you've got content out there and decisions are made ahead of talking to people, so content becomes an increasingly important part of your output as a business. I mean, we definitely believe in that, but you will go towards the businesses that produce that great content because they're seen as kind of market leading. So in terms of just like emphasis, has more importance been put on it by teams? Clearly, spends have gone up, but are you just getting that sense that this is a much more important part of the playbook than it used to be when you first started?
Yeah, without a doubt, Alex. And obviously, I would say that being a digital only platform, but I think it's exactly what you just said. Fundamentally, it comes down to when the trade is done, when the business is done, it's being done more and more online. And behind that, there is obviously huge focus on relationships still, quite rightly. And that is still a core part of the insurance and reinsurance market. But as people are spending more time online, they're doing more of their day-to-day processing online, they're consuming information more online. It's obvious that when an individual that's making a decision on a transaction, whether it's a risk manager picking a broker or a broker picking which markets to put onto a policy, or a reinsurance broker picking reinsurers, it is more and more being done online. So yes, there's the relationships that sit behind it, the history, the data that you've got on that organization. But actually, if it's down to a click of a button on a logo, having this view on an organization because of things that you've read about them, the expertise that they've got in the line of business that you're actually dealing with online, is the sort of thing that comes to the surface when you are making these big decisions. And also, I suppose, when you're making decisions on these organizations to recommend them to your client. I am picking so-and-so to lead this because they have deep expertise in cyber, as you can see recently by the build out of their team, or this white paper that they've produced, or this coverage that they've got in a cyber publication. So I do think that complexity is definitely coming through. And as you say, it ultimately comes down to that point of transaction. And it might be a subconscious thing, but having an affiliation with the brand that you're picking, a positive one, because of what you've read, because of how regularly you've seen them online, is obviously becoming more and more significant. And yeah, without doubt, I think organizations are really realizing that now.
Yeah, agreed. It's making me think about our online brand. It needs an evolution. I mean, lastly, I'm conscious of our time, but I wanted to give room for what's next, because I know there's quite a lot of exciting things happening. Launching of new capabilities on the platform. So, what is next for Slipcase? Where are we going in the future?
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I think we've hit a really nice, every sort of now and then, usually every couple of years, we hit a really exciting new chapter or sort of shift. And we've got quite a lot of momentum behind us at the moment. We're very excited about 2025. I think primarily, there's a few things. Firstly, we've just acquired our biggest competitor, so a UK offering that was similar to ours, had a lot of organizations that were working with them that we couldn't get to work with us. And that's been sort of unlocked, as well as a few other nice perks of onboarding that business. It's very exciting. That's closed off last month, and we're seeing some benefits of that already, which is very exciting. We've grown the team. We just hired another client manager to look after a lot of those organizations once they're on board and help service them as well as possible. We're growing faster than we've ever grown, but our biggest concern is obviously our service level dipping as we progress. So that's a huge focus. And yeah, as you mentioned, we've got a whole new system going live next month. So slipcase.com platform, the way we represent companies, the way we showcase the content, distribute it, and present it on the system is all getting a really, really nice upgrade, which we're very excited about. And that's based on a huge amount of user feedback that we did, and also client feedback as well. So that's going to be a very nice shift. We're also working on some really cool technologies in the back end of the system that are going to help us sort of technically enable us as much as possible going forward, so we are scalable without losing any quality of the service that we're providing. So yeah, we've got a lot of really exciting things on the go. I think all building up to another another big shift in 2025. So yeah, it's exciting times.
It is exciting. Alex, I love what you do. I'm really pleased that you're doing it because I think, it fills a real gap, and all these things are interrelated, whether it be events and content and then white papers, and, having that home for it and that knowledge base is hugely important because, otherwise kind of what are we doing as an industry if we're not pushing forward our kind of knowledge and be able to share that between the users and the corporations and all the businesses that are kind of trying to make things happen. I think it's a enviable business model and a really great initiative. So, Alex, thank you very much for being on the podcast. And as you shamelessly plugged, if you want to find out more, speak to Raf, or I'm sure Alex will take a message from you on LinkedIn, I presume.
Absolutely, yeah. And Alex, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to get in touch, please do drop me a note on LinkedIn or get in touch with the team at slipcase.com.
Great stuff. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Alex.